We want to welcome everyone to our campfire this morning. We'll be speaking today about crystal reports, specifically Flex to Crystal. Now, we've done campfires before on Flex to Crystal, but it's been quite a while. And so we wanted to show you some of the stuff that's going on recently in this area. And also, towards the end, we're going to tell you about a special that we're doing right now with Flex to Crystal. So make sure you stay tuned for that. So to get us started, we're going to have Tony Cabrera, our Senior Consulting Manager, that will be presenting on Flex to Crystal today. And he'll be talking to us about not only what's going on with Flex to Crystal, but also what's been going on with crystal reports in general. So now I'll turn it over to Tony and he'll get us going.
Hello, everyone. Like Oliver said, I'm Tony Cabrera. I'm a Senior Consulting Manager at Mertech. And today we're going to be talking about the latest version of Flex to Crystal. That's Flex to Crystal 2.5. So we're going to discuss what's new. We're going to be going over how to use it in a web application. We're going to be going over the licenses needs when you use Crystal reports in a web application. We're also going to take a peek at the latest Crystal Reports 2016 Studio. And we're going to show a couple of other, how to do a couple other things. Everything that we're going to show will be available to you, the sample applications and the sample reports that we created. So you'll be able to get your hands on those after the campfire. But to get started, I thought we would just take a walk down memory lane really quick. If you were like me and started writing reports some time back, you probably started writing reports in character mode. You remember those? Not very pretty. And in some cases, those reports were really more than just reports. A lot of times it was more like a business process wrapped around a report. So we had to learn to separate business processes from the report or from reporting. You probably also, like myself, did some VPE reports at some point. And I think even today, there's some people out there that are using VPE. But at some point, we were introduced to Crystal reports. And quite honestly, I thought it was great. I thought that being able to design the report in a UI made it much easier. The Crystal Studio was easy to use. And you could create nice, professional-looking reports with all kinds of bells and whistles. Being able to do the query in a SQL was made it a lot easier to get to the data. And you can even on the early versions, you could extend the functionalities of Crystal by writing a add-on, a DLL add-on. And I did a few of those for a couple of customers, where you just create this DLL and just put it somewhere, and Crystal would pick it up, and you would add a functionality to Crystal reports. Now, the one main downside was of using Crystal reports was DLL hell, and we all have horror stories about it that we always tell after a few beers at every conference that we go to. But other than that, it was fairly easy to adapt Crystal reports and start using it in the projects. But sometime around 2004, 2005, we needed to start transitioning from the DLL version of Crystal reports to the ActiveX. And on this version, actually we went one forward, but on that version, let me just on that version, basically the transition was fairly easy because since VDF had ActiveX or comp support, basically moving to it was fairly easy. A few classes were written, and other than starting to use the new classes for it and then getting over the new type of installation and having to register some objects for it, it was fairly painless to move to the ActiveX version. Or at least that's the way that I have chosen to remember it. But in any case, moving to ActiveX was it's something that I hope we all did, and it allows us to just continue writing our reports, our Crystal reports, the same way that we always had. But come 2011, SAP said that they would stop supporting COM. So it was time again to transition. This time from the ActiveX version of it to the .NET version of Crystal Reports. Now this time things were not going to be as easy because, as we know, there is no .NET supporting BDF. So .NET left a pretty big gap in a transition. So we all started kind of deciding, hey, what are we going to do? Or, some people started looking at other options, other reporting tools, and some were waiting to see what was going to happen. And in 2012, to fill that gap and to give us a way or a path forward, Mertech released the first version of Flex to Crystal. Now, like Oliver mentioned earlier, in the past we've had some campfires showing how to use Flex to Crystal in Windows applications. They show how to migrate existing reports, and you can view all those. If you want to take a look at them, you can just go to our website, mertech.com, and you can go to Products, Crystal Reports, and Webinars, and then you can see them there. Now, on this campfire, we're going to concentrate on the latest version of Flex to Crystal, Flex to Crystal 2.5. And what is new? Well, Flex to Crystal in web applications. Now, the concept of using Crystal reports in a web application is obviously not new. It's been done for quite a long time. Even using Flex to Crystal in a web application is not new. Some customers have done it, but to do that, they had in the past they've done it by just modifying the base packages themselves. So you had to kind of do it on your own. For this new version of Flex to Crystal 2.5, the packages have been updated so that they will compile in a web app. And this has made using Flex to Crystal in a web application a very simple and clean process. And we're going to go ahead and show that right now on how to do that. So here's our first demo. And this first demo is going to be showing Flex to Crystal 2.5 with a DF 18.2 web application. And we'll see how simple it is to add Crystal reports to a web application. I have here a Windows 10 VM, not that it matters what it is, but just in case you're curious. And on this Windows 10 VM, I got everything installed. I already have Crystal reports installed. And I'm going to show just first just the report that I migrated. Basically, it's one of the sample reports on the sample applications that come with DataFlex. And I believe originally this report had a it would just return a static PDF. So I converted it so that it would Flex to Crystal returns the report in this case. Now, how did I do that? Well, let's go look at what we have. The first thing that I had to do is include in the project the Flex to Crystal library right there. And basically that one gets added when you install Flex to Crystal on your machine. That one gets added or gets included during the installation, and all you have to do is just go find it and include it in your project. So that was the first thing. The next thing, I just went into the customer list sample WL, and I just told it to use the FlexoCrystal package. This next section here is just the code that was there on the report. I just made some changes to the run report procedure. So if you notice here, I'm actually sending the run report to a Crystal report object that I added that we're going to see in just a little bit. If the report actually is successful, it returns a path that then the DataFlex framework knows how to deal with. So basically, we take that report that we generated on the Crystal side, and with this call right here, we put it in a folder that the framework knows to work with and expose it to the web server. And with this next call right here, then we will show the report on a new tab. The web framework also allows you to just, if you want to, just embed it in an iframe on the actual report page that you are on. Now, as we move down, this whole section here of web forms and web groups is just, where the filtering or parameters are being collected. And here is our FlexoCrystal object. Now, it looks just like a regular Crystal report object. We tell it the report that we want. We tell it that we want to go to that we're printing to a file. During the initialized report, just like with any other Crystal report there, we collect our parameters, and we create our selection criteria. And it's very simple. I mean, you just grab it right out of the forms and just create the criteria. And then you just set it to send it to the report itself. Now on export report, here we tell it to put it on that, put the report that's being generated on that specified folder that the framework has assigned, and we do a little random thing there to make sure that the file is unique and we're not overwriting anything. And it's simple enough there, we're just telling it that we want a PDF report. And that's pretty much it. So you just add that object in there, and then up here, you call it. So let's take a look at how it works. So if we go up here, and I'm not going to have it run everything, I'm just going to tell it, give me the first 5. So we use that one parameter, and we run it. So this report didn't really want to do that. So it brought me back my 5 customers, and this report happens to be just generating a Google map on the fly, and we'll be showing a little bit later what we're doing on that report. But like we all saw, it's very simple to add the Crystal report object and create a report on the VDF side. So in a nutshell, what happens is we add that object, our FlexoCrystal report to the code. We export the code to a PDF. We put the file that we're exporting to a predefined folder, and then we let the DataFlex framework deliver the file to the browser using ASP. Now, if you basically, all those files end up, for this one project, if we go to web order here, there's this one folder here called reports. And inside of it, there are all those files in there. Now, since all these files are being put here, at some point you need to write something to kind of clean up this folder, either once a day or depending on your needs. The files are obviously not going to disappear on their own. You have to write something to clean that up. So that's Flex to Crystal 2.5 in a DataFlex or a DF 18.2 web application. So that was simple enough. Now, if we go back to our slide, does it work on older versions of web app? Well, the answer is it's simple. It does. The process is a little bit different, and we're going to be going over that in just a sec here. But yes, you can use it. On the example that I'm going to use is on VDF 15.1 web application, but you can use it on even older ones, probably all the way down to even a VDF 12 web app will probably still work. But the one that I'm going to be showing is going to be on 15.1. And let's go ahead and take a look at that. So it's going to be on the same machine. And I'm just going to go ahead and minimize some of that. In this case, the report that I changed for this one was this one right here, the same one, the list of customers. And I'm just going to go ahead and we're just going to go to the second one, and I'm just going to tell it to do the first 20 and just run it. And in this case, it's going to ask me down here or whether if I wanted to save it, download it, open it. And there is my first 20 customers. So let's take a look how to do that on the classic style type of web applications. So basically, I created this Crystal report.wo, and I'm just using Flex to Crystal, the Flex to Crystal package right up here. In this case, I didn't include the library. I just copied the files right into the app source folder of this project. And if you notice on this one, I actually have two Crystal report objects right here. There's one right there, and then I got the other one right here. I actually have projects where I have 15 or 20 Crystal report, Flex to Crystal report objects in one WO, and I just use that same one to serve all my my reports. But just like the other one, we're just telling it that, we tell it the report name, we tell it that we're printing to a file. On initialize, we do whatever we normally do on initializes, passing our parameters and setting our filters and all that. And in this case, on export, we kind of do the same thing. We got to tell it that, what type of file that we want to export. Now, the name, in this case of the file that's being exported, it actually gets set a little bit further. So this is just the second report. This one's actually doing some selection criteria for it. But if we go down to the actual web business process, all I have here is just two functions that I have published, one for each report. And on this simpler one, all I'm doing, I'm just giving the reported the final name of the file that is being generated. And once again, I'm just doing a random just to kind of make it unique. And I set the file name for the report that I'm exporting, and I run the report, and then I just return that file name back to the browser. Now the browser needs to is the one responsible for showing that file. In this case, the files actually end up being, if we go to the example workspace that I'm using here, which is just plain old order entry, the files will end up being right on there, get placed right on the app HTML folder. You can actually put them under another folder right inside of the app HTML. I've chosen to just put it in the root. But in this case, you still need to, at some point, have something that goes through and kind of cleans up your files after a while, depending on your needs. But let's go ahead and I think I already showed what the report actually running. Let's just go back to it for a second. So it's fairly, like I said, it's just fairly simple to add it to the classic style web application. So once again, in a nutshell, to add a Flex to Crystal to a classic style web app, you added your Crystal, the Flex to Crystal report object. You tell it that you're going to export it to a PDF. You put it in a predefined web folder. You return that web folder a path to the browser, and you let the browser open it, and you do your cleanup. Now, on the browser side, this is on the classic side. This is what it looks like. Here's the ASP code for it. It's just fairly simple for that one report. I mean, we're all kind of familiar, if we've written this kind of code, we're all familiar with that block of code right there. So I'm collecting the parameters that are being passed, and I'm just telling it to run that function, passing the parameters. We said that it would return me a path, and I'm just telling it to redirect to that page that is available on that web folder. Now this could be made, we can put more validation in there and make it so that if it's not valid or it didn't get created because there was some kind of error, you can show something nicer to the end user. But this kind of shows just the basic idea on how to add it to how to use Flex to Crystal on this web application. Now let's take a few minutes to look at something. Let's take a few minutes to look at that report that we showed originally, and let's take a peek at what the new Crystal Reports 2016 Studio looks like. So I have it installed here. Okay, here we go. So this is the latest Crystal Report 2016 Studio. And if you look at it a little bit, well, you might say, well, it looks exactly the same as the other one. And it does. They did there were only like 2 or 3 small bugs in the UI that they fixed. So it's not that much different than the 13.1 or the 11 for that matter. To get a hold of this one, the actual links, at least up until 2 weeks ago, I haven't checked in the last couple of days, but up until about 2 weeks ago, I couldn't find a place on their website to download it. I actually downloaded it I got on a live chat with one of their salespeople, and they sent me a link, and they sent me a 30-day license to play with it. But it is available, and it is released already, the 2016. And like I said, there's not much more to say about Crystal Reports 2016 other than it's been released. Now this report that I originally showed on the first application, some wanted to know exactly what we were doing and how we were doing it. So this report is just a regular custom report, and basically I'm having it map the address of the customer. So I just threw on here an image, and it's actually quite simple to do to get it to show the map. If I go into format graphics, so I got my image, and under picture, under graphic location, I give it this path to Google Maps, the Google Map API. Now, first thing that I did here is I kind of created a formula that just has the address, city, and state. That's what this full address has. And I'm just passing that, and I'm telling it, okay, that's the center of my map. I'm giving it the size that I want there. On map type, in my case, I'm just showing the roadmap, but in reality, you can actually have it show any other type of map that Google Map does. You can do a satellite, and actually originally I had it showing satellite, but it didn't look very good on a report. But you can do terrain or any other type of maps that the Google API supports. And then finally down here, I'm doing a marker. I'm telling it, okay, you know, add the little marker, the little red thing at that address. And that's pretty much it to have it generate a map of the location on the fly. Obviously, this is not something that you want to do on a report that have thousands of addresses, because it's going to take a little bit of time. The other thing to just remember if you're doing this Google Map is to tell it not to can grow, because otherwise it will try to do this big old map inside of your report. So if you tell it not to grow, it will obviously stick to the size that you have defined. So that's all we did, just to have it map the address there on the fly. Now, if you notice on this report, this is a very simple report. The only table that we're bringing in is the customer table. So there's nothing else. This report has no sub-reports. But yet, I'm showing the number of orders that this customer has, how many distinct items they have purchased in the past, the date of the last order, maximum, the largest order they had, the minimum order, and their total sales. So how am I bringing that? Well, if you notice over here on the right, I'm using quite a few SQL expression fields. Now, some people are not familiar with those, so that's why I'm actually showing them, and I know maybe some of you are. But these are actually pretty neat to use. Basically, the limitation that you have with them is that you can only bring back one piece of information. But let's just kind of take a look at what they look like. So for the number of orders, I'm just going to go there, and I'm just going to tell it to edit the expression. So I'm just writing a little SQL statement, select statement, that I want the count of how many orders are for the customer, and this is how I link it to the current item or customer line item. So very simple to use, but like I said, you can only bring back one piece in one row, one column. Now, the nice thing about them is that in some cases, I mean, you can make them a lot more complicated. If we go, that one was looking at the order headers. This one is a little bit more complicated. If we go in here, I'm actually doing a join in the select statement, but it's just a simple select statement. And I'm telling it, okay, bring me back how many distinct orders, items are in the different orders that this customer has. But it follows pretty much the same format as the other ones. Now, the benefits of using SQL expression fields is that they run on the server. So they're a lot faster than having like a sub-report to collect some of this data. They are many times a lot easier or simpler to write than trying to do some kind of totals and telling it, okay, well, this total needs to reset whenever the customer changes and this and that. It's a lot easier. And take, for example, this one, the largest order, the maximum order that a customer has had. Let's say that I actually only wanted to, this number only had meaning if the order was was done in the last 3 years, because this customer could have had a purchase of $2 million 10 years ago, but who cares? So I just wanted to see the max orders, the max order in the last 5 years or something. Well, it's simple enough to just come in here on the expression and just add an end statement out here and say, where the order is, order date is, greater than, 5 years ago. So they're very powerful to use, fast, and simple that way, and it keeps your reports clean. And like I said, in many cases, it's a lot easier to use than sub-reports. Now, obviously, if you need to show multiple rows of or columns of information, you still obviously need to do a sub-report for that. So that's that report, and I'm showing it with the latest version of Crystal Reports 2016. So let's just minimize that. We'll come back to this PM in a little bit. Let's come back to our slideshow. The next thing that we're going to show, we're very excited about. And on this next one, on the next demo that we're going to show FlexiCrystal in an evolution server. Now, this is not just about showing that we can run and report an evolution server. That's just will be kind of boring. We've already shown it twice that we can run FlexiCrystal on the web. On this demo that we're going to do, we're actually showing a new feature that we have added to FlexiCrystal. We've actually added export to stream. Now, export to stream is not new to Crystal Reports. In Crystal Reports, if you've had the ability to export to a stream or to a buffer for some time, but it was never exposed to the COM control. So on the VDF side, it was never available to us until now. So we kind of made that or introduced that ability to FlexiCrystal so that you can actually export a report to a stream or a buffer. Some of the benefits of that, well, it's faster than generating a file. And when you're, since a file is never created, then some of that cleanup that we said that you had to do in some of the folders after a while, well, there's no cleanup to do it after. The report, especially like if it's being used in a desktop application, the report can be passed around. For example, let's say that I have a custom PDF viewer on a desktop application. Well, you can pass that report around without it ever having to be on the file system. So there's no cleanup. And the report gets passed around in a U-character array. So you don't have to worry about having to set argument sizes or anything like that, regardless of the size of the report. So let's go ahead and take a look at that on this next demo. And if you're, like I said, we're going to show this with a using evolution to deliver the report. So let's get that machine. Now, if you're not familiar with Evolution, I'm going to just kind of show you briefly what an Evolution server looks like, or what you have to do to use Evolution from VDF. Okay, so basically, if you're not familiar with Evolution, here's a simple Evolution application. In this case, it's called evolution.src, and you got a basic, application, just like you would see, application object like you would on any VDF application. You got some login information for the database. You got this evolution server object, and then in our case for this one, we have this reports WL. Now that report WL up here, in essence, it kind of follows the same pattern that a regular WL from a regular web app looks like. I actually hidden some of the data dictionary structure and stuff that are used on this demo, and I'm only showing stuff related to the report demo that we're going to do. But this is a full application that has a full CRUD interface to it. And like the data dictionary objects and all that are inside this include file right there. But for our report, this is what we're doing. We have this function. So basically, we have this VDF application that is headless, and we publish these functions, in other words, our API, and then we use Apache to serve that API to whoever wants to use it, and we're going to be showing it from just a browser calling the report. You can actually serve it also from IIS. Not that I don't know why would anyone want to, but you could use it from IIS as well. So on this call, it's just a very simple call. It's called replace pricing report. We're passing some parameters. And once we get right here, we got a array of integers about the format. Basically, on this one, you can tell it, or you can request the report be returned in multiple formats at the same time. So you don't have to call it multiple times. You just tell it, okay, I want to see this report as a PDF, and I also might want it as a XML, for example, and then it just returns you the report in both formats at the same time. So this section right here, just doing your typical validation of the parameters being passed, and then what you do, you got this code right here. You open the report, and then with this code right here, we're just exporting the report to a buffer, one per report format that got requested. And then it all gets returned or served back on that parameter, which is the div report. And that div report is defined up here as a T file. And let's just go take a look really quick at what that T file looks like. So a T file is just a structure, some information about the file name, file size, created information, and the actual report, the stream is actually in here in that U character array inside of that. So that's the actual structure that we chose to pass around the report. So let's go ahead and show it running. And we're just going to show it from here. So basically, we got this report right here, so I can tell it I want it as Excel and PDF, and I just tell it to run it. And Report comes back embedded and runs fairly quick. The links right here that we put up, since we are creating the links ourselves, the PDF ones, we tell it, okay, you know we can show it. So if it's a PDF link, we're telling it, okay, it's ready for viewing. If it's something like the XML or any other type that we can't necessarily show on the browser, we made the link show, okay, this needs to be downloaded. But from the browser side, what you get back kind of looks like this, where you get two objects back with information about the file and the stream right in here. And I'm going to invite Oliver now to come in and talk a little bit about what else is going on in the background here. Oliver?
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, so the couple of things to remember here. When you're publishing an API, it's always difficult to do file uploads and file downloads. It's always something that people have trouble with because of the fact that uploads and downloads normally don't fit within your API spec. There's something that's outside of it. And we wanted to solve that problem for Crystal reports, specifically for Flex to Crystal and the Evolution combination, so that you could serve these reports via an Evolution API without having to worry about all the stuff with cleaning up files on the file system, all of that junk that you have there to deal with. We wanted to get rid of all of it and just make it a much simpler process. So essentially, the way all of this is working internally is that you're passing this T-file structure from DataFlex to Evolution, and Evolution is taking that and serving it back to the client actually in a binary format. And this is the reason Web App actually serves files back as sort of this separate add-on thing. It's very difficult to do the binary data transfers for Crystal reports and things like that through a web application. What we're doing is we're making use of the fact that Evolution supports Apache Thrift, which is a binary format, and allowing you to pass your report directly back to the browser in an API call. And we've got the JavaScript all written for you and everything that can decode that binary format and actually do something like what Tony's showing here of even embedding the PDF directly into a web page from that blob of data coming back. So it ends up allowing you to do a lot of different types of views of your data without all of that mess of cleaning up a file system. This is something that requires not only a new version of Evolution, which you'll learn more about soon, but it also is requiring a new version of Flex to Crystal. So this 2.5 release of Crystal is what will include this functionality. And the output here that we're showing you is very, if you're familiar with it, it looks like JSON. And in fact, once it gets into JavaScript, of course it is JSON, but we're actually decoding a binary payload in this case to bring it back. So it ends up being very efficient over the line, which means it's fast. There's no base 64 decoding to worry about or any of those sorts of things. And it makes this whole Flex to Crystal Evolution combination really powerful. Like Tony mentioned, in this case, we're running the report just a single time, and we're actually in the very same API call returning two separate payloads, the Excel file and the PDF file, all in one API call. So it reduces the number of round trips to your server and also only runs the report one time. So even going back to your database server, it's going to reduce the load from reporting on that. We all know that reports end up being one of the largest loads on a database server anyways. So it can actually lighten the load all along your reporting path. So anyways, something to look for with Flex to Crystal 2.5.
Okay, thank you, Oliver. So let me go ahead and shut that machine down. And now if we go back to our slideshow, the next thing we're going to show is not something that it's necessarily that is new, but to Flex to Crystal, but it's something that a lot of people don't know that is in there. So we've all had to deal, if we write Crystal reports in VDF, we all had to deal with this verified database dialog, right? And it's kind of a pain because anytime you make a change to a table that is used in a Crystal report, then you get this dialog come up. And in a web application, well, that's even worse because then it will get stuck in the back, and the user doesn't really know what happened. Now, developers have used different solutions to deal with this dialog, this verified database, and probably the most popular one has been throughout the years has been mass verified. Right? We've used that. The problem with mass verify is that it's kind of old now and it's really not being maintained. Now, other developers have rolled out their own solutions. I know that I had one where whenever he would run a Crystal report, he would have Windows look for if a dialog popped up with verified database in the title, and he would click it away if it came up, and that was their solution. But Flex to Crystal, the Flex to Crystal development team came up with a solution for you. Now, what do you need to do to use our solution so that you're not pestered by the verified database dialog? Well, our solution is very simple. You have to do nothing. Why is that? Well, part of what we do during running the report, or before we run the report, the code goes out and figures out whether a verify needs to be done, and it does it for you. So if you use Flex to Crystal, you don't have to worry about verified database anymore. It does it for you. And so any changes to the tables shouldn't affect your report for the most part. And I say for the most part because obviously if you rename a field that you're using in a report, or if you delete a field that you're using in a report, or the table for that matter, obviously there's nothing anyone can do about it, and you have to change the report. But for those simple things that sometimes trigger the verified database dialog, Crystal reports with that, and then you don't have to worry about it. And I'm just going to show a very quick, show you that very quick here. Is a very simple demo. So I'm just going to go in this machine. I'm going to go in that original 18.2 demo that we did, and I'm going to go and edit the customer table, which was a table that we had on the report. And I'm just going to add test ASCII 4, save it, and then I'm just going to go back to my report. Just going to close that, and I'm just going to run it. And something timeout with getting the stuff out to the server, but that had nothing to do with the change to my report. The report ran. So that the dialog, like I said, we deal with it if we do the verify for you if needed, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. So now we're going to talk about if you what products or licenses you need to keep in mind if you are wanting to use Flex to Crystal on the web. And for that, we're going to ask Oliver to kind of go over that with us. Oliver?
Yeah, so the licensing on Crystal reports is sometimes about as clear as mud. And so we kind of did the work and wanted to go over what sort of licensing is required for Crystal reports depending on what you're attempting to do with it. So first off, we have a product called Crystal Reports for Visual Studio. Crystal Reports for Visual Studio is free if you have at least the standard edition of Visual Studio. It doesn't work with Express. And essentially, that is the Crystal Reports designer embedded into Visual Studio. You have to create a project to create reports within that. But if you have Visual Studio, Microsoft Visual Studio Standard Edition or greater, you can actually just download this plugin and create your Crystal Reports. And you don't actually need a Crystal Reports designer license. The problem with it, of course, is that you have to go create a Visual Studio project, create your reports there, and then possibly copy them into your Visual Dataflex project. And so a lot of times developers don't want to go through all the hassle of doing that. And that's the reason that there's still a Crystal Reports Designer that is a separate product that you can buy. It's right at $4.95, and you can purchase that directly from Mertech. So most developers end up needing that license for Crystal Reports, either because they don't have Visual Studio or because they don't want to have to maintain a whole separate area for their reports. But you do have the option of doing that for free. Now, there's another piece of the Crystal Reports for Visual Studio, and that's the runtime portion of it. The Crystal Reports for Visual Studio runtime is required to use Flex to Crystal. This license is also free. It's not something you pay for. You don't pay SAP for it at all. You have an almost unlimited distribution for Crystal Reports for Visual Studio runtime. The one exception to the distribution license on Visual Studio relates to your distribution of web applications. So if you are, for instance, an ISV that sells a web application to your customers, then the Crystal Reports for Visual Studio runtime license does not allow that. And what you need is this item down at the bottom here called the Crystal Reports Developers Advantage Runtime License. Now, this is not actually something that you have to get a license file for and distribute with your application or anything like that. This is a contractual license only that enables a section in the standard Crystal Reports for Visual Studio runtime license so that you can use that free license on web applications. The right to do that costs $2,495. It's a one-time fee that you pay to SAP for the ability to distribute web applications that use the Visual Studio runtime version of Crystal Reports. So that's what most people are going to be working with, either the free scenario with the plugin, or along with having a Crystal Reports Designer license, which is $495. Now, on the Flex to Crystal side of things, we have also a license for Flex to Crystal Developer. We're doing some special offers with it that I'll describe in just a couple of minutes. But and we'll go over the Flex to Crystal licensing right at the end here. But there's also another product you may be familiar with that I just want to go over, the Crystal Reports Server. The Crystal Reports Server is not something most Dataflex developers need anymore. It used to be something that if you were doing web applications, really the way SAP had things set up, you needed a Crystal Reports Server license. They used to almost mandate that you buy one of these. This is really a business intelligence tool now. It's kind of, even though it's still called Crystal Reports Server, it's an ad hoc reporting and web viewer for Crystal Reports. So although you can take a Crystal Reports and run it in the Crystal Reports Server, really its intent is for this web-based ad hoc reporting, so business intelligence style stuff. And it's licensed either on a named user basis or a concurrent user basis. And the licensing can get really expensive really quickly. It's competing with these other BI tools out there. It's competing with Jasper reports, things like that. And in general, we see it starting around $8,000 for a license of Crystal Reports Server, and it can go up quite a bit from there. If you needed 40 or 50 concurrent users, you would be looking at tens of thousands of dollars for the license easily. So most users, like I mentioned, that isn't the tool they need, even if you're using Crystal Reports on a web server. these other setups are what you need there. Now, on the Flex to Crystal side of things, right now, actually, we have a limited time special offer for Mertech customers that have Flex to SQL already. You can get the Flex to Crystal developer license on a subscription basis for $295, and you have the right to deploy your reports to unlimited sites royalty-free if you have Flex to SQL. So when you renew your Flex SQL maintenance, it'll automatically also add in the maintenance renewal for Flex to Crystal. So that's just a small added fee for the maintenance renewal on that, but there's no initial cost for that royalty-free license there. You just have your developer license that you need to purchase. Now, we can also sell the SAP Crystal Reports licenses to you as well. So we have the Crystal Reports 2016 upgrade available, since that's now out, and you can get that if you have a prior version of Crystal Reports. I think you can go back quite a ways with it, at least to the 2011 version. And that's $295, or like it mentions on this slide here, the Crystal Reports designer license, if you needed a new one, is $495. So just a few notes for you there on how all of this licensing works. If you have any questions as Tony goes through just the rest of his presentation here, another item or two, you're welcome to ask, and I'll answer them right at the end. Back to you, Tony.
Okay, well, actually, we're already at the end here. We're in a Q&A. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, you can kind of send them right now to Oliver, and we can kind of go over them. But that's the end of my part of the presentation.
So Tony, I have a question for you actually. With the Google Maps stuff that you showed off, it's embedding a static image. I got that from it. I would think that there are probably other APIs out there that do something similar that you might be able to use in Crystal Reports as well. Have you come across any others that you can do that with?
Yeah, actually, there's a demo that gets installed when you install Flex to Crystal that actually shows how to go out, and that one goes out to a goes out and uses the API from here. I can probably maybe show it really quick. It's not on this VM, it's on the other one. This one report here actually goes out. Let's go to the second report. And descending. Just gotta tell it what I want. This report is actually going out to Amazon, and we're just giving it a product, and it's going out, getting the picture from Amazon, getting the barcode, and getting the current price in Amazon for the product. So yeah, there's all kinds of things that you can do on the reports where they're making use of APIs available out there. And like I said, if you wanted to see that one, that's included. That's one of the demo apps that we put in with Flex to Crystal.
Gotcha. Okay. The one other thing I want to mention is Flex Crystal 2.5 isn't quite out yet. Look for an announcement from us in really just in the next few days here with the download link for the newest version of Flex to Crystal. So it's just right around the corner. So you'll be getting that probably even around the time you get some of the follow-up stuff on the webinar here. So just be on the lookout for that anytime now. And Tony, doesn't look like we have any questions.
Well, that's good.
So, well, we'll go ahead and end it now. Thank you all for joining us. If you do have any questions, Tony, maybe you can pull up your slide there. You're welcome to send an email over to tony@mertech.com, and Tony handles a lot of the support on the Flex Crystal product and has a lot of experience with crystal. So you're welcome to ask him about that. If you're interested in getting a license to Flex to Crystal or have more pricing information, you can either contact us by phone or contact sales@mertech.com, and we'd be happy to help you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.